Well, Keenan's position in the absolute division as well opens up something that we want to talk about, and that's closeouts, right? Because Keenan closed out the European absolute division with his teammate Lucas Hulk Barboza, and we saw something unprecedented in Jiu-Jitsu last weekend. I don't think I've ever seen this before, ever. We saw the absolute podium at the San Francisco Open, 4 teammates, gold, silver, bronze, bronze. Atos closed out the entire thing. Now, I think I need to double check it, but it was Keenan, it was Lucas Hulk, it was Gustavo Batista, and Vasconcelos. Yeah, Rafael Vasconcelos. So 2 new guys to Atos. Obviously, they're beefing up their squad. But let's talk about closeouts, because there's a potential we could possibly see some more at Pans, right? The Gracie Barra guys, we've picked Otavio and Gabriel as a pretty strong chance that they're going to close out middleweight there. And
Alliance always has guys.
Central Costa have a lot of lower weights.
The colored belts and stuff, yeah. So, it's a thing, right? We see closeouts happen all the time. But what do we think about that? Closeouts, do we like them? Do we not? Are they good for the sport? Are they bad? Who wants to start?
Man, I think we've been lucky these last couple of years. We haven't seen a lot of closeouts. I feel like for a little bit, closeouts were really looked down upon, and so maybe there weren't as many these last couple of years. We were lucky. Worlds, there was only Otavio and Gabriel closed out in 2016. Was there any in 2017? Any closeouts at Worlds?
Not in the men's division.
Man, I think there was one in the women's division. Yeah. There was Gracie Umaita, I forget Maxine.
That might have been at Pans last year. Was it Worlds too?
Worlds too,
Worlds,
yeah, like feather.
So really we've been pretty lucky, I feel like. We haven't had too many of those closeouts. Closeouts haven't reared their ugly head. I think it's a pretty ugly head.
I was going to say, if you're lucky that we haven't seen them, that means you're not a fan.
Yes, definitely not a fan. I mean, I remember at 2016 Worlds, right, when Gabriel and Octavio closed out, and as well liked as those guys are, and as big as a contingent Gracie Barra has, I remember hearing the crowd boo, because I feel like nobody likes closeouts, man, and it's an unfortunate thing to have to. I understand you don't want to fight the guy that you train, you bleed sweat and tears with every day. I can understand, but as a fan, it's just such a terrible thing for the sport. You don't want a Golden State Warriors type of jiu-jitsu team. You want all those guys to fight each other. That's what's going to create a healthy environment of competition.
Well, that's kind of the crux, right? Like, everyone understands. Everyone can imagine themselves trying to fight their friend, their teammate, and they realize that kind of sucks. But everyone also watches, like, damn, I don't get a final. You wait all day, get to the semifinals,
huge anticlimax,
and it's over. And maybe there's 2 in a row.
But as much as we all hate them, I do understand them though, right? Because, like you guys are saying, you don't want to fight your teammate, but also you might know that one trick to your teammate's guard, or how he passes to beat him, and then if you show the world, like, hey, this is how you handle this guy,
This is jiu-jitsu. There's no tricks to it, right? There's no little tricks.
Maybe back in the day, when there were no video.
I don't buy the argument. I don't buy the argument, because I know Keenan says this too sometimes, where he says, oh, Hulk has the one trick that if people knew this, I'd be screwed. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't believe it. I don't believe it.
Jiu-Jitsu black belts hate him for his secret tricks, right? Yeah. But we were talking about closeouts, and everybody hates them. Personally, I'm the same as you guys, man. I want to see a match at the end of that division. That's what we're there for. We want to see that showdown. We want to see that decisive moment. But there's one group of people who obviously love closeouts, and that's the team coaches, right? Because when they get there to the podium at the end of the tournament, and the team trophies are being presented, well, of course, if there's a gold and silver, that's more points than they would have got for a gold and a bronze, or whatever it might be, right? So, but is it fair? Because these teams are loading the brackets with top talent, and they're placed on opposite sides. UAE JJF, for example, they'll seed teammates on the same side of a bracket, so they'll never meet later than the semi-final. Do you think that's the solution here?
I think it's a solution, but maybe not the best one. We've seen a lot of UAE matches where none of us are too thrilled when there's 2 teammates fighting. It's just sort of anticlimactic in its own unique way.
And there's a lot of fixed matches.
And there's some of the fixed matches.
No, there's a ton of fixed matches.
Definitely.
Let's be straight here, because this is something that we've had to dance around a little bit in UAE JJF. I think that they're doing the right thing. They're trying to make it so that teammates aren't facing off in the finals because they don't want to close out. There's prize money on the line, right? But what happened is guys are getting to a semi-final, and you see 2 guys who are super competitive, and one guy will basically just give an arm a minute in, or will get guillotined or something, or toe hold, or something you never see them tap out to in a minute to a teammate, and then of course backstage you see them, they're splitting the cash.
I think credit to UAJJF for at least trying to change the culture there, because it does seem like there is a culture where guys don't want to fight their teammates, whether that's a sport thing or.
So how do you fix it? Penalties? Do you
DQ them? You see a suspected fixed match, then you just say, right, okay, you guys are not going hard enough. And I know it's subjective, but the referee's got to be super on top of who those guys are. I would straight out DQ them. Fixed match, both out, no points.
Opens the can of worms, man.
Into the final.
Yeah.
How do you judge what is fixed if it looks like a legit submission and you know better? There's some kind of intangible element that you really can't put down on paper. It seems like it's risky to just leave it in the hands of a referee to say, nope, that was fixed.
Yeah,
I think it's a good point to what is the solution to all of it,
ADCC do the same though, right?
I have a question for you. So you're the big MMA guy. In MMA, do they ever fight, the two guys from the same team ever fight each other in MMA?
Yeah, not too often. But I think it's a little less tribal, I think, in MMA, whereas sometimes you go, guys in MMA go to a coach for this amount of time, and then they go to another coach, where I feel like it's in Jiu-Jitsu, a lot of these guys are, joined this gym when they were 12 years, joined Gracie Barra when they're 12 years old, and they're Gracie Barra till they die, and so I feel like in that case, these Gracie Barra guys, they're on the same team, whereas MMA, it feels like I'm on my team and you're on your team. It just feels a little more separate.
But sometimes when we've seen teammates in MMA fight each other, one guy will just straight out leave the gym, right? He'll leave the gym, go somewhere else, get his own kind of squad of guys, and then quite often never go back. So can create a big schism. In Jiu-Jitsu, though, I think is good because at least they're not kicking each other in the face, right? So, but ADCC, just go back to the whole referee thing. They see teammates as early as the opening or second round. And they are ruthless. If they feel that the match, because ADCC is different, right? They got the center ref, and then they got the table of judges and the point scorers, and those guys are they'll stop the match, call the referee over, and they'll issue a warning, and they'll say, we don't think they're going hard enough. Go give them a penalty. So, I don't know.
There's something special about ADCC, though. I mean, there's more on the line than just money. I mean, people really want to be an ADCC champion. I don't think I'd be willing to bargain that away if I made it that far. So. I don't know how you get there for other events, but I think that's really what's on the line is that title.
Well, maybe there's a cap on the amount of teammates or the amount of members per team that they could enter per division.
Well, and this is what Andre commented on our Facebook. I think that's worth mentioning.
The loophole?
Yeah, well, because he mentioned that Atos International versus Atos USA, those guys can fight in the quarterfinals. It's not quite the same thing, right?
And their points don't add to the Atos team points.
It was more so about the points. Yeah, they don't both add up to Atos overall. They're individual points for each individual team. So that was one of the things. Some of these teams just have strength in numbers. They have so many people registered that they're going to get the most points just on registrations. But those points are actually going to separate Atos teams. So
to explain, there is a limit of 2 members per team per division. But the loophole to get around that is by having a team A, team B, right? So you'll have Gracie Barra A, Gracie Barra B. Then you'll have Atos, like you say, International, Atos USA, or Alliance Brazil, Alliance USA. So they can have sometimes up to 4 or 5 guys in a division just by changing the team names. But of course, the A team is usually the main guys, and that's what go towards the team points. But I can understand that because a team like Alliance, for example, they got a huge training center in Brazil, huge one in the States, but then different places in the States. Those guys never train together, right? I remember Manchakera of Alliance New York when he was with Marcelo Garcia. That is, he fought Michael Lange, and he was like, I don't know that guy.
Johnny Grippo and Cobrinha.
A little bit closer, but I mean, teams are so separate. They don't train together. They don't know each other that well. I don't see an issue. Keenan Hulk, they train together every single day in that room in San Diego, right? So,
I mean, I think it's worth mentioning why it would be worth the team's while to have a B and C squad. I mean, you can stack the brackets, right? So you could have maybe handshake matches or matches where that A guy goes ahead should they meet a C team player. So even though the team points might not add up to the direct sum from these other B and C squads, you can surely advance the A squad much more easily.
Open up a path for him.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, a lot of strategy going into this, right? But
But this has been going on for a long time, right? Like we've had dominant teams, Gracie Barra in the 90s, right? Early 2000s, then it was Alliance.
And Alliance up until this point, really.
Right.
Yeah.
And they went
Atos
10 years, right? So it's like, man, you just gotta have the best jiu-jitsu out there, really.
You gotta beat them, right? Like
Yeah,
that's
gotta beat 'em.
like trying to think of solutions. Like, well, somebody's got to beat him. You know,
Yeah,
somebody's
good
got to
point.
beat that guy. And that's kind of like the only real solution. I feel like.
Well, I mean, Pans, we were looking at those divisions, and in the black belts at least, we didn't identify that many divisions that could potentially be closeouts, right? You know, the middleweight obviously is a big one, potentially the absolute, but of course that's a little bit more unpredictable, shall we say? And the brackets dictate everything, right? So, but I don't know about you guys, but my fingers are firmly crossed that we're not going to see any closeouts at the Pans next week.
Always.